This is the video for 7.4, which is dividing polynomials. So we're going to start out looking at what happens when you're only dividing by a monomial. So when you're dividing any type of polynomial, whether it be a binomial or a trinomial, by one thing, you're just going to divide each specific term by whatever you're dividing by. For example, for number 1, if I have 48x minus 16, and I'm dividing by 8, what I want to do is I want to divide each term by 8. Okay, so I'm dividing 8 out of 48x and negative 16. So when I divide there, I'm going to divide 48x by 8, and I'm going to get 6x. And when I divide negative 16 by 8, I'm going to get negative 2. So this would be my final answer. 48x minus 16 divided by 8 is 6x minus 2. Now, sometimes you guys are going to see it written like this, where it's 48x minus 16, and they put the whole thing over 8. So what you need to remember is that you're going to divide 48x by 8, and then you have to remember to divide that negative 16 by 8. And that's why I broke it up and wrote it as two separate division problems so that we don't lose track of anything. Okay, let's go ahead and look at number 2. So I have 9x squared plus 15x, and I'm dividing by negative 3x. So notice I am writing each term over negative 3x so that I can divide. I can see that division occurring. So when I do that, 9x squared divided by negative 3x, remember when we learned dividing monomials, you divide your numbers, so 9 divided by negative 3 is negative 3, and x squared divided by x is just 1x. That's how many times x goes into x squared. Then 15x divided by negative 3x would make negative 5. And that would be my final answer. Okay, so that is when you're dividing by a monomial. Remember, a monomial is one term. So when I have some stuff divided by one thing, I use this method. Now we're going to move into long division. So you are going to divide polynomials using long division kind of in the same way that you divide regular numbers using long division. So the number that comes first, for example, on number 4, it says 8x minus 3 divided by x plus 1. Okay, so I am dividing 8x minus 3 by x plus 1. What you want to do is you want to ask yourself, how many times does x go into 8x? Well, it would go in 8 times. Then I'm going to multiply 8 times 1, so that makes 8. And then I'm multiplying 8 times x, so that makes 8x. Now remember, whenever you're doing long division, after you multiply by that number on top, you subtract. So in order to subtract, I know I need to distribute a negative. So notice both of those terms turned negative. And now I can subtract. Negative 3 minus 8 makes negative 11. And 8x minus 8x cancels out. So I have a remainder, okay? When you have a remainder, what you're going to do is the same thing that you would do if you had a remainder on a regular division problem. So your remainder, so this is minus 11, goes over the number that you divided by, so x plus 1. So my final answer is 8 minus 11 over x plus 1. And that would be the answer to my division problem. Okay, let's try another one. So look at number 6. So I have 7x plus 12, and I'm dividing that by x minus 3. So remember, you ask yourself, how many times does x go into 7x? Well, it would go in 7 times. So I'm multiplying 7 times -3, and that gives me -21. And then I'm doing 7 times x, which gives me 7x. Now I'm supposed to subtract. So when I distribute my negative, this becomes negative and this becomes positive. And then I do my computation. So I have 12 plus 21, which is 33, and 7x minus 7x cancels. So once again, I have a remainder, so I have plus 33 over x minus 3. So that answer would be 7 plus 33 over x minus 3 for my answer. Okay, let's look at what happens. Notice all of these, they were binomials going into binomials. So it was 2 terms divided by 2 terms. So let's look at what happens when these get a little larger. So I'm still using polynomial long division, except for now, notice I have 3 terms being divided by 2 terms. So when I set up my problem, I'm going to have 16x squared minus 4x plus 6, and I'm dividing by 2x minus 1. So the process remains the same. I'm asking myself, how many times does 2x go into 16x squared? So I know that 2x goes into 16x squared 8x times. So I'm dividing 16x squared by 2x. That's 8x squared, okay? So now I multiply. 8x times -1 would give me -8x. 8x times 2x would give me 16x squared. Then from here, I'm supposed to distribute a negative. So distribute my negative, and then I do my computation. -4x plus 8x makes 4x, and those cancel out. Now, unlike before, I have to bring down my plus 6, and then my process starts over. So I'm asking myself, how many times does 2x go into 4x? Well, it would go in plus 2 times. Now I multiply. 2 times -1 makes -2. 2 times 2x makes 4x. Draw your line and distribute your negative. Then you have 6 plus 2, which would make positive 8, and 4x minus 4x cancels. So I have a remainder. I know I have a remainder when there's nothing left to bring down, okay? So my remainder is going to be plus 8 over 2x minus 1. And that would be my final answer. 8x plus 2 plus 8 over 2x minus 1. Okay. Long division is one of those things that once you get the hang of the process, you should be okay. There's some things that I want to point out to you. First, I always look at the first part of my binomial and the first number that I'm dividing into. This number right here, these should always be the same, and then when you distribute your negative, they become opposites. Notice this 4x had a 4x under it, and then I distributed my negative, which made them cancel out. Okay, so when you're doing division, these numbers should cancel out, and you could be left with a remainder. You're not always going to have a remainder. It just so happened that the examples I did in this video had a remainder, but don't stress out if you don't have one. It could go in evenly. Alright, so this is the first video that I'm going to do over this. More than likely I will have another one. If you guys have any questions, please make sure you're coming in for tutoring, and you guys have a great night.